For those that haven't got their phones, take them out, turn them on. iPads, get them out. That was seriously one of the hardest things that we had to tell students. What we wanted to do this morning was actually to sort of take you through the journey that we went on in terms of getting this unit up. So as academics, Tim Hall and I, we knew that blended learning was going to happen. We'd read about it somewhere on the web. And we also knew that we probably had no choice. We were going to be forced into it, or it was just going to happen around us. So what we thought we'd do is dive in the pool, go down the deep end and have a go. The other reason, of course, was the fact that lecture numbers were dropping off and there was increasingly sort of no one to talk to first thing in the morning. So being good academics and working in the School of Business, we set ourselves two KPIs. The first one was to have fun. Now Kate tells me that I've got to actually say we wanted to create enjoyable, constructive learning experiences for students and ourselves. The second KPI was the one that we thought was better. We would have a damn good answer when we stood in the Dean's office and he said, "What the hell were you blokes thinking?" And realistically, it was the KPI that sort of drove the innovation in the unit. And while it sounds flippant, what it was about we wanted to take ourselves outside our comfort zone and move away from the way that we'd normally taught before. So that was what we wanted to do. So this dive in the deep end. This is the mind map that I gave Kate. I won't tell you exactly what she said because you're recording it, but you could have a fair guess. I learnt 2 new words. I was happy. So essentially what we did was we had a unit that we thought was quite useful in terms of having a go at blended learning. One, because it was on 2 campuses. We had about 200 students. They were first year, second year, and we also had some third years. So we had 2 years that had been given the iPads. We also had students that didn't have the iPads, which they constantly remind us of. In terms of the content of the unit we thought lended itself excellently to it because it was about teaching students how to create an experience. So we thought, well, why not have a go at creating a blended learning experience for them? So this was my thinking, confused as it was. We also realised that we would need some help, and given that Ghostbusters weren't around, we went up to the blended learning team and said, could we have some help please? And they looked at the mind map and realised that we did need some help. We actually didn't know what questions we should ask. We still don't know some of the questions we should have asked, but Kate was really quite helpful. She sat us down, patted us on the head and convinced us that she would be able to help Tim and I as a pair of old teaching dinosaurs to sort of come to grips with some of this. And so really this is where it started, about teaching old dinosaurs new tricks.
Well, thank you, Colin. Nice introduction. So when Colin asked me to be a part of this presentation, he provided me with this slide, and there's some little notes in the presenter's notes for me that said, Kate, only to speak on the blade perspective or herding dinosaurs and teaching them new tricks. But fortunately for me, in this instance, wasn't so much that type of experience because these guys are more Barney, you know, the big purple dinosaur, than T-Rex. Colin and Tim were so enthusiastic and were so open to a new learning journey of their own that they were more than happy to join forces with the professional staff from across the School of Business to turn their ideas and dreams into a reality for this unit. As such, this has been a really fantastic learning experience for everybody concerned, and we've now become affectionately known as Team Dinosaur. So Team Dinosaur didn't just consist of professional staff or only the Blade team. There was also the wider professional staff from across the School of Business. I think we also, along the way, picked up a few extras from across the university. This included Blade team members offering advice on curriculum redesign, technology use, view site design, communication strategies. The School of Business professional staff provided, they engaged with students in the class via the class blog, by going to the class and being introduced to all of the students so they know who was their point of contact to help them. They even took a few little snippets of video footage to try and make Colin and Tim look good in their class. They sorted out all sorts of matter of technical and non-technical issues and provided expert student support services. So, one of the technical issues they had to do a lot of work on was with views groups. And yes, Colin's already, rolling his eyes and hiding, because the note for him is that if he runs the groups in that manner again, that there'll be no more of the positive reinforcement training techniques, it'll be straight onto the negative ones. But in all seriousness, a large portion of the work that gets done on the units is done behind the scenes, without acknowledgement or thanks in the majority of instances. So to all the staff who worked on the unit, I'm going to give you a big high five and say a big thank you for helping Colin and Tim to look good throughout the unit. We also had fantastic support from our leadership team in the school, which allowed us to push quite a few boundaries, in particular with the web-enabled open book exam. Knowing that what you're doing excites your bosses and that they have your back is a liberating experience, and one that allows for the freedom to innovate. On the flip side of that, you also end up having to jump through quite a number of hoops to ensure that the planned experiences can go ahead. An example of this is after negotiating through all the UWS policy to ensure there were no roadblocks in our way to run the web-enabled open book exam, we then had to attempt to obtain the support of both our school academic committee, the SAC, as well as the academic registrar's office, and that's no mean feat in itself to do that. We're also required to provide the students additional exam-specific instructions on what they could and could not do during the exam and what they could and could not bring into the exam, as well as to provide information for the assessments units for their exam supervisors to use during the invigilation process. As a result of the web-enabled open book exam, we are already seeing some changes to exams processes, with a change to their exam cover sheet and to some discussions centering around changes to exams policy at the moment. And as much as the Team Dinosaur moniker is having a bit of fun, meeting KPI number 1, the attitudes behind it provide a really great example for others who may be hesitant about entering into the blended learning space. All I can say to those staff is that you don't need to navigate through the vast and often confusing blended learning space alone. There are many, many blended professional staff at UWS who will band together to help you navigate your way. They'll provide you sound advice, more often than not backed by evidence, provide outstanding technical support, create magic, and give you things that you didn't even know that you wanted or needed. In the delivery of this unit, the role of the professional staff versus academic staff shifted. Through blended professionals and a blended team, we were able to deliver a learning journey that hopefully kept our students and staff wanting to experience more of the same in the future. Through this experience, I know that Colin and Tim have become champions of the blended professional and blended teams in the delivery of learning and teaching. Hopefully through this example we can inspire some more change in perceptions around these roles as well.
Yep, done. Yep. The team thing was really one of the most important things out of it, and there's a couple of other people in the room like Alyssa and Paul and Zinni and a few others that really need acknowledgement. So they gave us iPads and we thought we should go and find out how to use them and really to have a class that was really driven by the use of the iPad. And Tim and I had long discussions about how we would do this, and some of it seems quite flippant and foolish at the time, but in many cases turned out to be quite important. Things like we actually decided we would work in a blended learning way ourselves and not sit in our offices. I spent vast amounts of time writing the unit, sitting in a coffee shop using their free Wi-Fi, and that's been quite amazing. There's been material that came out of that. We told students, as I said, to take their iPhones out and iPads out and put them on the desk, and that, I think for students, was one of the hard things, and for us it was probably one of the most liberating things. We stopped worrying about people's phones ringing and what they were doing on their iPads and just got on with having the class, and that was really good. We did other things that were quite simple. We moved from having PowerPoint slides to Keynote slides, and that meant a major change, and it's also provided interesting feedback because we went from having text-based slides to graphic slides. In terms of our lectures, I think the quality went up. In terms of student feedback, some liked it because they were forced into taking notes. Others hated it with a passion and wanted handouts and notes and stuff. The fact that the old slides were still there is beside the point. We used social media. We used Twitter, and we had a blog that supplemented the views site. The blog's had about 7,000 odd hits. It's had views from about 6 or 7 countries in the world. One of the assignments has been picked up by an academic in Bahrain and will be used. I thought Twitter was brilliant in terms of keeping abreast of what was happening in the industry and being able to feed that back to the students. Some of the students thought that was okay, others thought it was just a bit more noise. So we had 3 assignments. And in part they lead towards the notion of the iPad exam. The first one was to get them out and have a look at the industry as it stands. So it was about consciously building some experience capital and getting them out of the classroom and going to look at businesses in the field. Now that's worked fairly well. The second one was a revamp of an assignment we did last year. Last year they had to write a report where they had to design an experience for themselves. This year we thought, well, let's go a step further. Let's actually make them create an experience, do it. So we used the work of a British adventurer, Alistair Humphreys, and made them do one of these micro adventures where you have to take yourself outside their comfort zone. And we talked to people in the education faculty about this and got some really good advice. And there's a neat application in that will look at this assignment in more detail. The idea here was to make them use the theory to create an experience that was transformational. And in fact, one of the questions in the exam relates to analysing the experience and using the theory to do that. So we were fairly happy with those. The exam, well, this is what it looked like. It doesn't really look that much different to any other exams. So what were we thinking? Well, basically we just thought we'd had the iPads, let's have a go. So the turning point for me was a conversation I had with Kate, and she said, oh look, we had a discussion about this at one of the forums, and there's actually a video that goes for 18 minutes where we discussed it. I went, oh, send it to me, it'll just be great, I'll watch that. And who was the associate professor?
Surendra.
He was the catalyst. It's all his fault. He made a comment that, because I think his background's engineering or something, isn't
Yes.
it? And he said, oh look, I'm old enough to remember the transition from slide rules, which are, if you're young in the room, Google it. Have you? It shows your age, doesn't it? And he talked about this massive change in the shift in the world thinking where they're allowed to use calculators. And he also mentioned that the sky didn't fall in, and he just saw that the next stage was iPads and stuff. And we thought, well, hey, he's an associate professor. He must know what he's talking about. So then we decided we would have a go at convincing people that letting people play with the iPad in the exam was a good idea. This is in hindsight not a good idea, but then I'm not real bright. So we went to a number of people, including our Associate Dean, Sarah Denise, and told her. Surprisingly, Sarah didn't look at us and run away. She thought, oh, that's not a bad idea. And she actually went into bat for us and went to a meeting full of other Associate Deans and convinced them that this was a good idea. Unfortunately, we weren't there to see it because I would have loved to see how she did it, because it's quite an amazing. So then we had to navigate our way through all sorts of policy things, and I've never realised how many people are involved in exams and all the sort of technical aspects that did it. So we had some amazing help from the exams branch. Andrew, for example, and I had a number of phone calls and emails, and we came up with a list of, it's 2 and a bit pages, isn't it, of instructions for the students. I wrote the first lot, then they put in all the technical stuff that I'd forgotten about. I did put in things like, you know, don't email your mum in the middle of the exam. She probably hasn't read the textbook, and really important advice like that. Exams is probably not the time to update your Facebook status, although seriously I was hoping somebody would. Anyway, we finally got them convinced to let us do it. It's probably the most supervised exam that's ever been held in this university. We had Tim was at Campbelltown. That was one of the conditions, that we would be present at the actual exam. We had the blended learning team who interviewed people beforehand. Afterwards, we've had an online survey. And if you're wondering what the students thought, well, what did we get?
Fully sick bro.
Yep, that's us. Trust me, don't worry about the SFTs and SFUs. When I go into my performance appraisal, I'm telling them I got fully sick bro for my feedback. We're a bit disappointed. We've got the chance to be awesome next year. So anyway, so that was the exam. So these were the things that I got out of the thing. It was at least have a go, dive in the deep end, and I think that was a struggle. It was disappointing but I always knew this was going to happen. That not all students would buy into it in the way that Tim and I and Kate and a number of others did, and that certainly was reflected in the feedback. There was a love-hate relationship. It was a steep learning curve. I learnt heaps. I had fun doing it. I still don't have a great answer for the second part, but Clive hasn't asked me any questions yet. It was more work, particularly some aspects of it. We, in terms of more work, we did actually say that we would have it in summer school to see if we can diminish that a little bit. The first delivery was for me and for Tim, and we had fun doing it. It was next time I think it will be better focused on the students. Most importantly, it was a team effort, and it wouldn't have happened without the professional staff and academic staff working as one team, and that was probably one of the best things about the unit for me. And that was just absolutely critical to it, to the point where the Team Dinosaur thing started as a joke, and emails went to the students signed off by Team Dinosaur. The 2 KPIs, to have fun, that's still a goal, and still to have a good answer to the second one about what the hell were we thinking at the time. Yes, we still want to be innovative, and we still want to take ourselves outside the comfort zone. So thanks.